Good afternoon. Welcome to our next update. It's update 4 for the year. This one is all about how AI is going to be having an impact in transforming human capital, and a subtext of this, HR. Now, I just always think it's good for everybody to remember there is a purpose for doing these updates. These updates are always us trying to help people understand what things are going to look like out into the future. These are not necessarily meant to tell you, hey, here's everything you need to be doing today. The updates are to update your view of the future. Now, I say that because we're going to be talking about some things today that maybe they're not concepts that are ready for today, but they're absolutely concepts that we think are really interesting to think about for tomorrow. We'll be doing a little bit of kind of group participation in the middle of this one. So if you have worked with us before and I say, hey, it's time to do a chat waterfall, it means I want you to have your chat turned on. So you might as well turn it on now so you can see chat. We'll be pushing a couple of links to articles for you into chat, but also there are going to be times where I'm going to throw out ideas or questions, and I'm going to want you to go ahead and answer in chat. And then we'll just see a waterfall of people's answers in chat. And that's all we're looking for. We just want to see generally how you all feel about whatever the question is or the idea is that we throw into chat. All right, let's get started with this. I think probably many of you know, but if you don't, we do 2 think tanks a year. We do a think tank now in the spring. We do a think tank in the fall. We started doing these think tanks a long time ago. So we've been doing them every year for I don't know, 15 years. So back in 2016, we were doing a think tank on how the digital transformation, not AI, but the digital transformation was changing HR, changing the relationship of human beings and technology in an organization. And there was a moment in the 2016 think tank where Thomas Hill, who is the CEO of Kimray, he jumps up and he makes this following statement. He said, you know what? I think it's time to split the HR department. I'm going to split ours. I'm going to take part of the HR department that is the regulatory, legal, payroll, benefits, and I'm going to just change that into like a human accounting department. And then I'm going to have human resources just be hiring, skills, productivity, culture, things like that. And I will always remember that moment when Thomas said that, because I remember thinking, someday, maybe it's a little early now for people to be thinking in this way, but someday it's going to be absolutely necessary to split what we today call human resources into, at least these 2 different pieces, because the focus is going to be so different for the 2 pieces. So we'll come back to that. But it was just a thought that I had that I remember putting a placeholder in my mind in 2016 about the need to do this. Now, AI comes along and then things change quite a bit. So I was just getting prepared for this. I was just doing some research, thinking through the wave of AI and its impact on the workforce, human capital, HR. And so I always like to kind of go back historically. And so it's interesting because if you go back and you look at the Industrial Revolution, then you say, all right, well, what were the impacts of the Industrial Revolution on human capital, right, or on the workforce? What did that look like? And obviously, over the course of, 40 or 50 years, back at the turn of the last century, there was a pretty dramatic shift in the workplace, the workforce, and all of this is just kind of interesting to say, all right, well, these cycles happen, somewhat again and again. So we now have an AI wave, and in this AI wave that's coming, obviously we're going to have dramatic impacts on the workforce. Now, that's the purpose for this update today, is really to start unpacking that. And I'd like to start unpacking that by just acknowledging a piece of vocabulary that we're starting to see more and more articles written about. So in these articles, people are talking about an AI first model. Now, if you're a technology person, you know that it wasn't too many years ago we talked about mobile first. And the whole concept of mobile first was, hey, if you're going to build a web property, right, you should design it from the mobile application or the mobile version of the web property to the full screen version. And that was mobile first. Now we have people talking about the AI first model. Now, the top two lines, or the top two bullet points, are typically the definition that I've heard before for the AI first model, which is AI first means that whenever we have a problem in an organization, if we choose to be AI first, we will look to AI to solve that problem before we would look for anything else. All right, second idea that we see a lot around AI first is before you hire somebody else or you're going to get somebody approved to be hired, you have to be able to prove that AI couldn't do the job, or that AI heavily used in the department, let's say, couldn't obviate the need to actually have a human being. And so this is the first two definitions you hear a lot about AI first. Now, there are other definitions we're starting to see crop up. So things like, all right, well, when it comes to making investments in technology, we will invest in AI first. We will prioritize it as long as the ROI is higher or faster than other technology. For example, a piece of software, or we can buy a piece of software and implement that piece of software. What will the return look like for that versus if we spent the same amount of money on AI tools, for example, right? Another definition for AI first. Another one would be when we hire people, that we start to evaluate what's going on with their skills. And so do they have AI skills? And if they have a great amount of AI skills, we prioritize that team member or that candidate over other candidates. All right, the last kind of definition we're seeing for AI first is that leaders are starting to reorganize their teams to try to optimize AI capabilities and results. So reorganizing the whole department, saying, okay, well, here's a department today, it's got 10 people in it. If we reorganize this with a heavy use of AI, then what could we do with this department? Now we have 10 people whose skills are augmented and they have a lot of power. So I bring this up again, just concepts are important. It's part of what we try to do with these updates is we just try to share concepts with you that are coming so that you can be thinking about it. And so this definition of AI first, right, that in an organization, it doesn't mean AI only. It doesn't mean it's the only priority, it's the only thing we do. It's that AI first means it becomes a high priority to apply AI in situations or to make investments or to prioritize using AI tools to try to improve workflows. All right, you have a link in chat already. That link is to an article that basically supports, I think, the second bullet point here of what we're seeing in this AI first model. All right. Let's just set a little more context to the kind of meat of what we're going to be doing today. I think most of you understand the Humology model. Hopefully you do. If you don't, it just is a scale that allows us to talk about H12345 being more and more use of human, T12345 being more and more use of technology. And so the scale gives us a vocabulary to be able to not just say something's automated or not automated. Right? We can actually give a score, right, a H2 or a T3, right, to be able to better talk about how much technology versus how much human to get a process done or that it takes to run a company. All right, that's the reminder. So the important point of this is understanding that there are two massive assets in an organization. We have, for a long time, we have said people are the most important asset in an organization. Those people make up what I would say is human capital. Okay, they're your human capital. The human capital doesn't have anything to do with the amount of people you have, by the way. We have two companies that have 100 people, right? They each have 100 people, but one organization's human capital value much higher than the other because those people are smarter, they work harder, right? So human capital is all about what is the intrinsic value of the human beings that you have working in an organization. And an intriguing thing to me is always, well, how do we measure that? How do we measure the power of our entire human capital in an organization? It's not something that really has been measured much in the past, but it is intriguing to me to think about if you could measure it, right, then it's always easier to improve it. All right, so that's one side of the scale. The other side of the scale, we've got digital capital. And so digital capital would be the compilation of everything that you have that is technology oriented, all of it. Put it all together as an engine that helps you to run the organization. Well, then that would be your level of digital capital. Again, we've always said humans were the most important asset in the organization. I think we could probably all agree that digital capital is growing quickly. And we may trip across the thought later that at some point in time in some organizations, it may be true that the digital capital has more value to the organization than the human capital. Doesn't mean you have less people. It doesn't mean the people aren't just as important or more. It just means if you look at the total asset value of what it takes to operate an organization, someday the digital capital might actually rise to be more important than the human capital. But again, we don't have great ways to measure the compilation, the integration of all of our digital tools or our technology tools. That is also something that would be interesting to be able to measure. With that said, the most important thing to all of us should actually be the integration of these two assets. I mean, it's probably should be pretty obvious to us that human capital today without digital capital is crippled. It's just crippled in some way, right? It can't achieve everything it could or should achieve. Technology without humans to use it, to get data into it, to maintain it, well then digital capital doesn't have a huge amount of value. So what's really most important is the integration or the synergy between humans and technology. That's my point. Now, on the human capital side, it is still becoming more and more important to have a good team, to have a team that has a huge amount of knowledge, a great ability to learn, good work ethic, great problem-solving skills. All these things don't matter. All these things are going to matter 1,000 years from now. What I would say is human capital is still the most important thing in organizations today. However, how it operates is going to be different because there's going to be a much higher level of integration around decision-making, around learning, around thinking with the human capital. And so how it brings its value is going to evolve very quickly during this AI wave. And then I would say on the digital capital side, we are implementing an entirely new layer, right? An intelligence layer that sits on top of a infrastructure, data, software layers. So now we have an intelligence layer that we are building into it from this point forward, which if you are an aficionado of these updates, we call that intelligence layer the organizational mind. All right, so digital capital is evolving because of this weaving of intelligence all through the technology stack. Now, again, it's very important to understand when I say intelligence, there's synthetic intelligence, typically what we would think of as AI built into software and services. And then you have machine intelligence built into robotics, equipment, or devices. So when I say a new intelligence layer, it is actually made up of physical intelligence in devices and robotics, and then synthetic intelligence. All right, so again, just trying to make sure I'm getting everybody caught up to this line of thinking so that we can start to do this. We can say, all right, so this role of human capital, I said it was going to evolve. Let's talk about that for a second. First of all, if I go back now to the 2019 think tank, we did a think tank called The Rise of the Digital Centaur. okay, or the rise of the centaurs. Digital centaurs is a concept. We didn't invent it, but it's a concept that says that a digital centaur is an employee, a team member, that is highly evolved human being with highly evolved technology skills. Okay, that's a digital centaur. Highly evolved human skills, highly evolved technology skills. And when you have both of those in one human being, those are called a digital centaur. We have some of those today. So there are people that I work with that they are very highly evolved human beings as far as how they operate in the world. And they have a huge amount of technology skills. These are kind of rare and valuable people today, but we're starting to have a growing number of people that can achieve both of these. Well, if you look at the future of human capital, whatever word we put on it, whether we call them centaurs, whether we just call them, highly valuable employees that have great technology skills and they have great human skills, whatever we call them, this concept is something that's going to become more and more critical, because as people have the ability to integrate their skills and talents with synthetic intelligence, and in some industries also the machine intelligence, as we have an ability to do that, it's going to become more and more critical. If you're going to be a very valuable team member, or if you're going to assemble a team, to have people that are highly evolved human beings with highly evolved technology skills, and not just one or the other. Now, I also will say a couple other things about human capital in the future. I really believe that it's kind of obvious at this point that you can look at what AI or robotics can do, and in many cases it is doing work or making decisions that humans have made or done in the past. And so you look at, well, what does that do for human capital? It frees us to spend more time with our uniquely human skills and capabilities. And so I think we're going to have much more value placed on that, on people who have the highly valuable human skills. What that means is, if you have a job where you're doing rote work over and over and over again that's highly repetitive, highly mundane, you're making really simple decisions, you're doing something over and over and over again with your hands physically, right? That's less needed. And when we're not doing that, that frees us, right, to bring more of our human skills. I think I'm hearing more and more people say this, so I think this is something we pretty much know is true in the future. All right, workers will be more valuable, not less valuable. And I say that for many reasons, because they'll be able to bring more of their human skills, but also they're going to be the co-pilots to so much of the automated systems that are out there. And that's going to make them extremely critical, because without the automated system having co-pilots that help with those automated systems, you don't get whatever the result is that you're looking for from the fully automated systems. So just a few thoughts about the future of human capital. If we switch over and we say, all right, what's the future of digital capital? Then I think a few thoughts we need to think about is, we will be building that organizational mind, right, made up of both synthetic intelligence and machine intelligence. And I look at that as a very highly orchestrated system of automations. That's what that will be, is a highly orchestrated system of automations. If you just step back and blur your eyes and say, what does it take to run an organization? We should be able to step back and say, all right, it takes 40% of running the organization is done by our autonomous systems. And 60% of what it takes to run the organization is going to involve human beings. And so that's, again, back to why it's interesting to think about measuring human capital and digital capital, so that we have some understanding of, all right, what is it that is actually running, operating, making this organization perform? All right, I think also technology is going to start to be a very highly capable understander of the truth and giving advice on decisions. Now, this all comes from data. I mean, if that sounds funny the way I've worded that for you, a wonderful understander of the truth, it is because data often can help us get closer and closer to the truth. Now, I don't believe data solves everything. I don't believe data is always accurate. I don't believe data can't be polluted. Look, I'm not naive. I've been doing this for a long time. But if you stack up millions and millions of pieces of data versus human experience and intuition, there is some value to the millions and millions of pieces of data that synthetic intelligence can sort through to be able to understand what is the truth of a situation. Now, that truth could be, hey, what are the top 3 things we need to do to get bigger? What are the top 3 things we need to do to provide more safety for our workers? Right? So when we look at trying to find the truth of some business question, I think what's going to be wonderful is technology moving us closer and closer to being able to quickly be able to find that truth instead of depending so much on human intuition and experience. All right, last thing I'll say just about the role of digital capital is just, again, its growing influence, its growing ability to help an organization achieve its goals or its ability to compete. So when an organization sets goals, we want to grow by 10%. Right? We want to expand into the West. We want to generate more revenue from this product line. I think more and more we're going to see the digital capital be a lot the weapon or the tool that we're going to be able to lean on to be able to go help achieve those goals. Now, obviously, when we look backwards, it's often been human beings that we had to lean on. It was much more our team that we leaned on to be able to reach the goals. I think we're just going to find that as we move forward into the future, you build more value in our digital capital, then that digital capital is going to help us be able to reach those goals in a much better way than it's been able to do in the past. All right, just a few views from the future. Now let's get crazy and let's start really talking about human resources and human capital. We're going to put another article into chat. We just threw it in there for you. If you haven't read this yet, please do click on it. Make sure you get a hold of this article. It came out in May. Very interesting article because a lot of times when I read my river of information, there are articles that pop up that I go, that's interesting. I think that's a little bit of a sign of the times. Like, that's what I think about in my mind. Like, this isn't going to be the last time I'm going to see this. So in this case, if you don't want to read the article, I just pulled 5 paragraphs for you. I'm just going to give you a second, and I want you to read these 5 paragraphs. All right, hopefully you read that fast. So the important thing to understand here is Moderna promoted their head of HR to be over HR and all of IT. That's the first thing. Second thing is 3,000 GPTs, agents, bots, whatever we want to call them. They built them with OpenAI, so we call them GPTs. All right. So they had already built 3,000 GPTs. I saw since then that, it's incredible. They're building another, 5 or 10 a week. It's crazy the pace at which they're building these automations, right? These AI automations. And then interesting, if you look at it, doesn't mean that they're going to have less headcount. It just means that they're going to be much more creative and efficient at what they're doing. Right? So this concept of, hey, we have to figure out how to oversee the workforce, and that the workforce today is going to be made up of human beings and digital equivalents, right, is something that we're reading more and more about today, that this is coming, but also now we're seeing companies actually react to it and say, okay, well then let's just merge HR and IT so that one person is over both our digital workers and our human workers. So again, might be a sign of the times, something for you all to just kind of keep your eye on. All right, it's now time over the next 2 slides for you to make sure you have your chat on, because I'm going to ask your opinion. First on 5 questions, then on 10 ideas. And I want you to throw into chat your opinion. And generally, all I need you to do is put in one word. And I'll give you an idea of what kind of word to put in there. But I really want all of you to do this. And it's, again, because when we watch the waterfall of answers, it kind of helps us all understand, well, how does everybody feel about these questions or the ideas that are on the next slide? All right, so here are 5 interesting questions about balancing digital and human. First question, will it be easier or harder to replace or integrate a human worker in the future? So there are some people, great, you guys, I love it, you guys got it. That's all you got to do is put in a word, right? So we can all see what you think. So the argument for easier, those of you who have said easier, I love it, you're doing fantastic. The argument for easier is, wait, with all this technology, then we're not as dependent on a human being. So we should be able to switch somebody out. It's kind of the McDonald's concept of how they make fries, right? They built it so that it's so easy, anybody could learn it immediately. All right, the argument against that it's going to be harder to replace, is that it's going to be so difficult to match a new person to all of the technology, to the organizational mind, to the AI synthetic tools, the machine learning tools. It's going to be so difficult to try to match a human being into our digital capital. All right. I love seeing the names fly on here. Andrew Ranson, I just got to say hello to you. Miguel, hello. Lewis, I hope your travels went well on the field walk up in Illinois, right? I always love seeing all the names. So hello to some of you. I'll say hello to some more of you as we go along. All right, now that you know how to play this game, we got 4 more questions. The next question, how much leadership effort should shift from a focus on building up the value of our human capital versus building up our effort in digital capital? So all you really have to do is put DC or HC if you want to. And what you're saying is, hey, we should shift more leadership effort towards improving our people or improving our digital capital. So at your organization, or if you just want to say it, for the world, where should we shift? All right, Ken Parker, hey, there always has to be somebody. Always has to be somebody who says both. Robert, I understand the combine both. It's interesting how evenly split it is. The folks that believe we should, put more effort into digital capital or human capital. Tom, I understand the concept of, all right, let's have an improvement framework for both. I get it. All right, and then we got a whole series of digital capitals. You were the people who thought about it more. All right, Kevin, a balance. I get it. Carlos, I think that is true. Of course, it depends on the industry. It depends on kind of the maturity of the organization. I think the important thing here is just to really ask yourself these questions for your organization. All right, if I have a pile of leadership efforts and I have to divide up the leadership effort, should we be putting more effort into one thing than the other right now? And I can tell you, just being an advisor to lots of organizations, when we step in, a lot of times we see people are putting too much effort into one or the other. For example, still putting too much effort maybe into their human capital when that isn't really where the value gain could come from. They could get much more value gain if they would focus on their digital. All right. Very good. J-Dub, it was good. I saw you fly by there. And Jill Springer, always good to see your name on the screen. All right, next question. Should we work to apply cultural values to digital equivalent workers? I love this question. So I had somebody ask me this question one time, right? People said, all right, we worry about culture with our human beings. Now we're building all these digital tools that are going to make decisions, these digital tools that hold knowledge and learn. should we enforce cultural values onto our AI? Matthew Myers, I saw the ethical, right? The word ethical. It's not, and I think what you're probably saying is, hey, it's not just enforcing the cultural values, it's also our ethical values as well. So I think that's a good distinction. All right, Ryan McBride says no. Ryan, when you get a chance, just quickly put into chat why you said no. I know you're a thoughtful person, so I'm just give us a sentence or two about why you think we should not worry about enforcing culture into our digital tools. All right. Whereas Mike Kobach says it's a must, and Mike's from Philadelphia. So, all right, Ryan, while I'm giving you time to do that, again, I was asked this question one time when I was on stage not too long ago. And people were really starting to think about, okay, great, we have all these digital equivalents that we're building, and they're making decisions and they're interacting with our people. Shouldn't they follow our cultural norms? And then the question came, hey, technically, like Scott, technically, how can you enforce cultural and ethical norms? And hopefully all of you know that we can. Oh my gosh, my cousin, Jim, also known as James Klosowski, is on this. One of the only other people on the internet with the Klosowski name. Jim, it is good to see you, so to speak. All right, but I hope all of you know we have technical abilities to enforce culture or ethics onto AI tools, right? So there are multiple ways that can be done. And so this is just not a question of can we do it, this is just a question of should we do it and how should we do it. All right, fourth question. Again, you all throw your opinion in here, just do it in a word or two. All right, who would be responsible or who should be responsible for the hour capture and reinvestment process with AI and robotics? All right, so as we are now operationalizing AI, what's happening is we are capturing hours back. Thousands of hours, hundreds of hours, we're capturing a lot of hours back. Those hours need to be reinvested, and they need to be reinvested appropriately in an organization. A total fail is to do a high amount of automation, and then you don't have a way to actually reinvest the gains, right? The hours that you've captured back. So this is another question that's been kicked around is, well, is this HR's responsibility? Is this each departmental leader? They should be responsible for it. Is there some other position? Is it the CEO? I mean, who is saying how many hours are we capturing from all this AI and what is our model for reinvesting? All right, and I saw that you answered the question, Ryan. Whose culture? What if the bots thinks in a more tight view? So my answer to your question, Ryan, while everybody's answering the other question, we're multitasking. My answer to your question is it would be the culture that the C-suite wants to enforce. So when you say whose culture, we can choose. Like let's just say at FPOV, Hart Brown, he's the CEO. Hart Brown can decide what the culture is going to be at FPOV. And Hart could enforce that through our AI tools and how he builds AI constitutions and everything else into the AI tools. So that's what I mean is whatever culture the C-suite wants to enforce, should we enforce that? All right. So I'm just looking at some of your answers. Miguel, I think the department head is probably my best answer also is that each department head needs to understand their hour capture and needs to have a model for how they're reinvesting it. And they need to prove it to the executive team, right? They need to the executive team should be holding department heads accountable for how many hours did you capture, right? And are you reinvesting this well? But again, these are questions meant to make you think about things you might want to do in your organization in the future. All right, great answers. I got one more question before we move into the ideas. All right, 10 years from now, not in every organization, just in most, what will be the most important asset? I told you earlier, right? We've always said our people are our most important thing. I think I'm not trying to be a non-human. I'm just trying to be realistic that there are going to be many businesses where maybe that isn't going to be true anymore. But I wanted to know your thoughts. 10 years from now, do you still think humans will be the most important asset? All right, Emilio's got a balanced. He's voting for balanced. He read the Tao Te Ching. He believes in yin and yang, so he said balance. I don't know that that's a wrong answer, by the way. I think anybody who says, I knew it was coming, Luke, depends on the company. I think that's probably a great answer if we just generalize it, right? All right, Miguel, interesting. Miguel's at a manufacturer. So I think if you take that context, Miguel's probably right for a manufacturer, that 10 years from now, it'll be the technology that outweighs probably the humans. So John Whitney, also known as J-Dub, he's a strategist. So I think he's talking about there probably needs to be a ratio. That's probably the right ratio. Probably depends on, J-Dub, in your case, which part of the conglomerate we're talking about. All right, Ken Parker, I like your point. I always like how you think, Ken. All right, this one's going to be a little bit different, and this one, I'm very interested to see how you take these ideas. Let me tell you the provenance behind these ideas. One of the things I've been working on for a while is what are going to be the improvements that HR needs to make to be able to pave the road for the AI wave. I am a huge believer that AI or HR has a huge role to play. I got to say, I'm excited for the HR departments that will step up and play this role. I am nervous for the HR departments who will not step up and play these roles. So I have been studying for a while, what are some of the improvements or new roles for HR in this AI wave? I'm going to give you 10 of them. Your job this time is just to, I don't care if you put an icon, thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't care if you say like, hate it. All I want to know is, do you like this idea, or you don't like this idea, or you think this idea is crazy? So just throw in whatever word you want to throw in on each of these ideas, and we're going to go through these fairly fast because I really just want you to hear the ideas and then watch the waterfall and see what some other people think about the ideas. All right, these are in no particular order, but there are 10 of them. All right, number one, HR as AI ethicists. So a new job that HR takes on is they become the watchdogs for AI ethics, fairness, maybe we could say culture since we talked about that. Algorithm transparency. In other words, the AI, we have to be able to see how it's making its decision. But HR takes on this role as the AI ethicist. Jill doesn't like the idea. She's in the minority. I don't know, Dixie's with you. She doesn't like the idea either. Matthew Myers, he went even further. He said it's just plain bad idea. All right, so I like it. Catherine, it's good to see you on here, Catherine. All right, I told you I'm going to go through these fast. Let's look at number two again. I just want you to see these ideas and think about them. If only two of these ideas would be important for your company, that's two more than you got today, right? Before you walked in with. All right, AI workforce transparency creates a need for consent engineering, and HR would own this. HR would own the consent engineering of having to get consent from employees onto all of the surveillance that we may be doing. Now, I didn't have room to give you a bunch of examples, but let's just say you are a construction company and your people are working out in 105 degrees. Right? And so you want them all to wear wrist bands that track their heart rate, track their blood sugar levels and their hydration levels, right? And all that information goes back to HR. HR is tracking to make sure that you're okay. Like, there are so many examples I can give you that are really surveillance tools. They might be for your own good. They might be for us to make sure you're working, right? But we're going to move into a world with more and more AI-driven surveillance, which means we would need HR to be consent engineers. I know, Brett, it might sound like a nightmare, but I'm telling you, it's coming. It is coming that we're going to have to deal with this level of transparency because we're going to have the technology. Oh, Ryan. All right, good point, Ryan. I like it. The legal team, maybe. Yeah, I like it. Ugh, but yes. Yeah. All right, just an interesting idea. All right, let's go on. AI-powered culture engineering. Let's go back to this culture thing. If you thought that, hey, this is something that could happen, one of the things that we are seeing is the concept of using AI tools to shape and nudge culture automatically. In other words, HR can build an AI engine that can automatically track how people feel. We're doing spot polling constantly of people. We're watching their voice patterns. We're doing all kinds of things. And then we have AI-driven tools that could nudge people and culture and departments in the right direction, right? And it would be called something like culture engineering. Sean Hunt, thank you. Thank you for your vote, Sean. Sean, I distinctly remember you threw an idea out one time in a room of, like 30 people, and 17 people thumbs downed it. And I supported your idea. I thought it was a good idea. So I appreciate you. All right, interesting. There's a lot of yeses to the AI-powered culture engineering. I would say, and I know Annette would probably agree with me, we're not that far from it now with some of the tools that we are using to, be able to, do flash surveys and everything else that we're doing to be able to see how people feel in real time and then chart it across departments. I mean, we're halfway home probably to this kind of culture engineering. All right, Andrew, is that 3 yays? Is that what that is? Like yay 3 times? All right, excellent. Well, they're only going to get crazier. They're not going to get more sane, right? All right, number 4, compensation-based value creation that's dynamic. This one is interesting. The concept here is we need to move away from people being paid because of seniority or tenure, all right, that's how we judge how much money they should make, and that we should move to a dynamic compensation based on value creation. And that with AI, we would probably have the tools to be able to do the surveillance of the work you're doing and how much of the work you're doing, and then comparing it to everybody else's work to be able to say, look, everyone's got a base salary, but then we've got the performance-based pay, but it changes every single month based on the value creation that month. Yeah, Jason, you're right. I mean, it is a new world of pay for performance. It's really just taking that concept and it's AI enabling pay for performance. It is a slippery slope. Who said that, Robert? Yeah, it is a slippery slope, I think, because again, it's going to take a high amount of surveillance. Now we're back to that consent engineering, and you start to see how some of these things have to work together if they're actually going to work. But this one's intriguing to me. I don't know that it works across an entire organization. We've been doing it in sales for years because we pay commissions, right? This is just a different variation of this. But in some ways, this could make the workplace a more fair place. Matthew. So Matthew Myers says, love it, but my pay might decrease. But you have to understand, Matthew Myers' favorite book, his favorite book that was ever written was like the 4-Hour Work Week? I think that was his favorite book that he ever saw. So yeah, Matthew, I could see why if that's your favorite book, things could be a problem. All right, we're in the middle, the 5th one. This one I struggled with. I struggle with wording it, but also just struggled with even if I wanted to put it in. But it's one of the ideas that we've seen bandied around is that with digital well-being needing to become more and more of something that we focused on, that HR would be in charge of the personalized wellness programs, not the generalized, the personalized wellness programs. And so they would know what I need versus what Weston needs, versus what Trent needs, two other gentlemen helping in the studio today, right? So personalized wellness programs that where maybe a lot of what helps you is delivered through AI, VR, AR, right? Some of the new technologies that come up. All right, so Sean, potentially liability, potentially, depends on how crazy this gets. Yeah, conflict with HIPAA, yeah. Yeah, there's some, I told you, I struggle with this one because there's some ways that this is pretty invasive. On the other side of it, if it is your employer that is the one stressing you out and is the one that is causing you to be unwell, then don't they have some responsibility to try to improve that process? Yes, Ken Parker, personalized AI and VR delivery, right? Delivery that would be unique to me to help me with my wellness issues. Not that that would be possible, but maybe. All right, stimulative career pathing. Each employee gets an AI-driven career twin. Think of it that way. We each get an AI career twin. And that career twin is constantly simulating future scenarios and helping us get prepared for the things that we have to do next. Okay? Stimulative career pathing. Think about this in some ways as the next step past learning and development, right? That learning and development is, that's kind of old school. It's just straight up education. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with L&D, by the way. I'm just saying, think about dynamically that you have L&D. Okay, well, what's the next version of L&D? AI-driven career twins that are partners with you in your career, constantly helping you get ready for future scenarios, situations, meetings, talks, whatever. All right, I like this one. A little more positive review on this one. But yes, I think this one's a great idea. It's like once you hear it, like this makes a ton of sense. Like how fast can I get one of those things? So much more we could talk around this. Just that wording of saying a career twin. I've been debating a lot should the verbiage be a kindred, right? That each employee gets a kindred. Does each employee get a shadow, right? That's how far down the rabbit hole I go trying to think about some of these things. All right. Navigating, this one's really interesting to think about. So HR, we've already had, let's say, if you remember, we had some months ago, we had the dock workers on the East Coast were striking because they said they wanted to ban robots at the, at the shipyards. We know Hollywood, right? Trying to ban AI in some of the work that's done in Hollywood. So if you hold all that in your mind, then you say, okay, well, a new thing for HR is going to be navigating AI or robotics-driven labor movements. And so HR will have to become really savvy about how to work with unions, employee alliances, right? Collectives, which, by the way, could actually be fighting for or against more automation. I thought this was an interesting one. Probably not going to be a problem in every industry, but I saw Jason go on here, and Jason's in the construction space, right? And Jason and I have talked about robots in the construction space. Okay, well, there's also union labor in the construction space. So at what point, if you use enough robots, do you start having pushback from union labor, and then this becomes a common thing HR has to deal with? And so Sean is also in construction, commercial, right? So Sean's comment of should be whoever has a relationship with the union. Yeah, possibly. I mean, possibly. Maybe working with HR. I don't know. Yeah, Matthew, I like it. I shouldn't be the only one throwing out crazy ideas today. I like it. All right, next idea, stewards of humanness. Now, I've pulled these from a lot of different sources. I collaborated with some AI tools. I've had audiences ask me these questions. I've done workshops where these topics have come up. So, I mean, I had to pull these from a lot of places. This was something I pulled from one of the talks I gave, and it was a question from the audience, right? Hey, shouldn't HR start to be more and more of the caretaker for the value of the humanness? And I thought, well, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? If you say, okay, well, digital capital is going to grow in its importance, but who is always going to try to keep the balance in the scales of the value of humanness? And so I don't know what you think about this idea, but it's kind of an interesting thing. Yes, human advocacy, right? We know, Sean, interesting. So Sean Hunt is the CIO. All right, so Sean would be the advocate for the digital capital, theoretically. And then, his head of HR would be the advocate for humans, right? Human advocacy. All right, we just got two more, and these are kind of related. I really like the way this one is kind of worded. Workforce design becomes biodigital. And it's the concept of architecting, let's say a department, architecting a department by saying, all right, we have humans and we have, synthetic, or we have whatever the AI tools are. How do we now re-architect that department, right? If we were to build it from scratch, what would be the way to design the hybrid workforce that is that department right now? And so, again, the question is this something that HR, really should start saying, hey, we'll help take some responsibility for how departments or teams are designed to find the right balance of human and technology, that the humans and the technology work efficiently together. And I love this vocabulary of workforce design becomes biodigital. So that was a really good way to say it. And I think Andrew said 9 times yes. He's loving these the further we go along. So Sean, are you telling Kim yes? Oh, question 9, yes. Okay, got it. All right. 10, the last one, just the HR managing both human and digital beings. I want to go back to that article that we sent you. So back to the Moderna article. How did you feel about that? How did you feel about, let's promote the head of HR and have the head of HR be over both the human workforce and the digital tools, or the opposite? Let's promote Sean Hunt as the CIO over HR. And now Sean's got both digital and HR. And so basically you can manage the bio-digital, right, combination in the workforce. How do you feel about this? Or is this just too far? All right, my cousin says no, all capitals. I said some of these ideas were crazy. All I need you is to like 2 of them. If you like 2 of them, I feel like I've done my job today of inspiring you to think new thoughts. All right, Chad thinks it's far too far. Yeah, Dixie, that's actually something I was concerned a little bit about, is the skills to oversee technology is so different than the skills to oversee human beings. You'd have to have a unique person, that really could be good at both. All right, and Luke, I think that's a pretty practical answer. Yeah, Michelle, I agree, and that's part of the reason to think about how not to make them be at odds with each other. They, in some ways, have been at odds with each other for a while. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for throwing your chat waterfalls in there. We really appreciate it. A lot of times we'll go back and look through your answers, just because it helps us with some of these ideas. But there you go. There's my 10 latest interesting ideas for where HR is going to go in the AI wave. One other thing, just from an org chart standpoint, I just wanted to say this to you fast. We're going to send another article. If you look in chat right now, here's the link to this article. It just came out on the 11th about AI, will it kill the org chart? There's a lot I could say about this, but basically what it's saying is the hierarchical org chart of the past, CEO, VPs, directors, managers, that hierarchical org chart of the past is going to be something that just doesn't carry a lot of meaning. Now, those of you who know me know that I have, for over 20 years, I have espoused the concept of a round org chart. And this was, pioneered by Roy Disney in 1938. If you don't believe me, go do a Google search on round org charts, Disney, and you'll see his from 1938. But the concept of a round org chart, you put the leader in the middle, right? And then you radiate out to the people who are closest to the customer. So the people who are closest to the customer are the outside of the wheel. They're the most important part of the company because the wheel does not roll without them. And then basically the pie slices are the departments. Now that's if it's a small organization or you're just showing the leadership. I think the other thing a lot of us have seen is probably the concept that people are now weaving in digital tools or weaving in agents into the org charts to be able to show, all right, well, we got digital workers and we got human workers. And so I'm not saying this is right. The one thing I'm saying is I do believe that there will be somebody who will redesign org charts that are going to be able to show an integration of human and technology. And we're going to look at that org chart and go, that's brilliant. So I think it's coming. I haven't really seen it yet, but I will tell you this. If you have a larger org, it isn't one circle, it's many circles. And this is called a holacracy, okay? As opposed to a hierarchy, it's called a holacracy. And it's a good thing to look up and study if you've never studied it. I've been talking about this for a long time. I'm probably wearing some people out who know me about the fact that org charts need to evolve past these triangle hierarchical org charts into something more organic, especially because of the young generations. Young generations do not like that hierarchical pyramid kind of org chart. They like things that are more organic like this. They still say who reports to who, but they carry a whole different feel as far as what is the company doing or what is this department doing if it's a department. All right, so let's start wrapping this up. It's time to land the plane. So what are we going for here? Right, we're going for having HR and our human capital be able to integrate with synthetic and machine intelligence. And we are looking for maximizing 4 different kinds of intelligence. All right, so we have goals for human intelligence, goals for synthetic, we have goals for robots, right, or machine intelligence, and then we have goals for hybrid intelligence. And so just wanted you to just make sure, again, you're just thinking about, we have different flavors of intelligence. What we have now is a world where HR and IT are going to need to be able to work together, or we're going to need to reorganize things to maximize these forms of intelligence. And what does it all add up to? We can stop thinking about just human resources and we can just think about work resources. We've got digital capital and human capital. It's not, when it comes to resources, we just have workplace resources. How do we best integrate those workplace resources? Today's the day to start this. So if you're not doing this at your organization, today is the day to think about this concept and start moving forward with it. All right. In case you have not known this or you did not know, right? Our fall think tank is September 29th and 30th. The link is in chat now. It is called the Leadership Forge. It is for a leader and an emerging leader. We'd like you to come in a pair because the whole thing is designed for you two to work together and then maybe to work with others to be able to build a model for how AI is going to change leadership in the future. And so that's what we'll be doing on September 29th and 30th. Like I said, if you're interested in this day-and-a-half think tank, hit the link that's in chat right now. All right, let's just close it up with this. Hart will do the next update. And we think about these things in advance. What we decided we needed to talk more about, because we haven't talked that much about it, is robotics. So update 5 is all going to be about robotics and the role of machine intelligence in the world. And just so you know, this is Hart's robot dog. Hart has been buying up robots left and right, getting prepared for this update. And so just wanted to introduce you to Detail, the robot dog. I'm sure Hart will feature Detail in the update in September. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you in a few months.